Our chalice lighting words this morning are by Reverend Rebecca Savage. We light our flaming, united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This is a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals.
Good morning. My name is Elaine Imlau, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Last February, I shared a story about discovering a town named Elaine in Arkansas. In March, I visited Elaine again on my way to Florida. Today, I'll introduce you to some of the individuals I met during my stay and the activities that have developed from this visit. And perhaps you'll be motivated to support the effort or join the group for the Elaine Legacy Civil Rights Tour in October. As we begin this service, let's stop to acknowledge the indigenous land we occupy, no matter where or how we gather. The building of this congregation stands in the traditional homeland of the Bakoje people, known also as the Iowa, who now live primarily in the states of Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. It is in the homeland also of the Meskwaki and the Sauk peoples who still live in our state. When you hear a land acknowledgement, consider giving to an indigenous cause, organization, or mutual aid project.
Good morning. My name is Birch Spick. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs, and I am the celebrant for this morning's worship service. Whether you are here for the hour, for a lifetime, or somewhere in between, thank you for joining us here today in this community that grows ethically and spiritually, serves justly, and loves radically. This service is being recorded and will be available to view later on the church's website and YouTube page. If you are joining us by Zoom, please feel free to keep your cameras on, but please keep your mics muted in consideration of one another. If you are joining us in person, children and families of all ages are welcome to stay for the whole service. In the back of the auditorium is our We Worship space, which families may use if their children need or want to move around during the service. Our gathering song is hymn 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. If you're joining by Zoom, please keep your mics muted. You will find the words on your screen.
Is in a holy place. We are blessed with love and amazing grace when our heart is in a holy place. When we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with our loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in heart is in a holy place. When we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Each week, we celebrate that this community is an intergenerational one. We celebrate that no matter how old or young we are, we all have something to learn and grow in together. This time is our chapel for children of all ages. Today, we have a story to share with you called The Just In Case Backpack by Andrea Kazmarek. It isn't a competition to see how much stuff you can squeeze into your backpack. Mom shook her head. But it's all important stuff. Lily loved her backpack. It was small and blue, and so many things fit into it. Lily's backpack had lots of zippers and pockets too. That made it even more special to tuck things away. And that was Lily's big problem. You just never know what you're going to need when you are in the garden or the park. What things? Lily's mom seemed to be having a head-shaking day. Just things that might be useful. Lily grinned at Cyril's squirrel hanging on the back of the backpack. Lily started counting on her fingers, skipping ropes and juggling balls, a big blow-up beach ball just in case. Just in case of what? Lily's mom knew she shouldn't ask, but she did. In case somebody says, "Has anybody got a beach ball?" Then crayons, pencils, and paper if you need to draw. A few games and dice. A puzzle or two, just in case. Lily's mom didn't ask, and Lily carried on listing her things. Bubbles. You might need to blow a few soapy bubbles to cheer you up. Ice cream. But that's silly. I meant to say money for ice cream in one of the little pockets. Candies, cookies, and a few jelly beans too. That's what pockets are for. Lily carried on. In winter, I have extra gloves and scarves, and in summer, I have a sun hat, clean socks, and a towel. I can't believe it. You don't need all that stuff. Mom was almost giving up. I've got a few storybooks too, and a bit of music, just in case. A small tambourine and a whistle. And just in case, I've got a few Band-Aids and my address is inside, just in case I lose it. Mom didn't ask anymore. But later at the playground, the just in case really happened. Well, quite a few just in cases. Lily had taken out her juggling balls and skipping rope and was having fun in the sand with the others. I bet you haven't got a decent ball, one of the boys called out. If you help me blow it up, I've got a huge giant beach ball in my backpack. Lily laughed and her mom shook her head. Brilliant, the children all shouted, and beach ball catch was the new game. Then one of the little ones fell off a swing. Lily was there as quick as a flash with a handful of Band-Aids. Just in case, she smiled and handed the little boy a few jelly beans and blew a few soapy bubbles to cheer him up. When they all got tired and sat in the shade, Lily pulled out the crayons and paper and they played boy, girl, animal, fruit, an alphabet word game. Lily scribbled down Billy, Beyonce, bear, and banana and was the fastest for B. The children had just started with F when the ice cream man arrived. But she didn't need the just in case ice cream money. Mom waved and gave her some. After the ice cream, Lily wanted to put away the crayons, but she opened her mouth in surprise and cried out, "It's gone! My backpack is gone!" Everybody helped look for Lily's backpack. The other mothers, all of the children, everybody. They looked everywhere, in the bushes, in the sand, under the swings, even up in the trees. We'll get a new one, Mom tried to help. But Cyril's squirrel is gone too, as well as all my other just-in-case treasures. Lily started to cry and nobody knew what to say. Lily's special backpack was gone, and most important, Lily's toy squirrel. That was the very worst. At bedtime, Mom told Lily, "But you put your name and address inside, didn't you, just in case?" Lily nodded. "Yes, just in case I lost it." Let's hope that somebody reads your address and just maybe brings it back. Mom gave her a big hug. Did Lily get her backpack back? Yes, she did. A few days later, Cyril's squirrel and the backpack were sitting at the front door. Lily couldn't believe her luck and whooped all over the kitchen, hugging Cyril and kissing her backpack. But things were missing. Lots of things. The candies, the cookies, the jelly beans and orange, the fizzy drinks, the games and books. Oh yes, and the ice cream pennies too. So who took Lily's backpack and sweets? Cyril's squirrel knows, but he's not telling. He's a secretive squirrel. Now Lily doesn't put quite so many things in her backpack, just in case she loses it again. She keeps it nearby in the playground and keeps a squinty eye on it just in case. Lily is more careful and only puts half the things in her backpack, even though she always finds it hard to choose. Nobody ever wants me to play the tambourine or blow my whistle anyway. I wonder why. But what does that story have to do with today's topic of Elaine, Arkansas? This week, some members of our church purchased backpacks for the children at the Elaine Legacy Center. The children will be able to start school with sturdy new packs for all of those things, just in case. And their names will be on the packs so they don't get lost.
We make our journey together in this community of meaning, fostering one another's growth through services, classes, and fellowship. So many of us pour our time or talent into our life together. This is possible also through financial giving. Our pledges and donations support the work of this congregation in nourishing our lives, and our Sunday donations support the work of nurturing our values. So in this offering, let us be grateful for all that we have and all that we can give. Half of the offering we give today goes to our congregation's social justice work, and half will be split with our Faith in Action partners, Knock and Drop and Just Voices, to support their work in our communities. For those of you joining by Zoom, we encourage you to use the giving page on the church's website or mobile app. You'll also find the link posted in the chat. In the middle of this hour, in the middle of our lives, we make time for stillness. Let's enter into this time of meditation, thought, or prayer. To begin, set your body comfortably, stably. Rest your hands in your lap, at your sides, or however you can rest them without straining. Straighten your back as much as you can without straining. Close your eyes if that helps you find your center. Now clench your muscles. Start with your fingers and toes, then your arms and legs, then your shoulders, your neck, your jaw. Now relax. Clench your muscles again and relax. Breathe in, slow, deep, down into your belly. Breathe out, slowly. Breathe in, breathe out, deep and steady. We will meditate in this way for 1 minute. In this congregation, we gather each Sunday to tend to one another's joys and concerns. Here in this space, we lift up the names of those people we hold in our minds and our hearts, aloud or silently. If you are joining us by Zoom, carrying someone in joy or concern this morning, you may share that in the chat box. And if you are joining us here in person, feel free to speak aloud the names or of whoever you are carrying this morning, or keep them silently in your heart. Jules. Members of our congregation shared these joys and concerns with us this week. Devin McClurkin's father passed away after a recent diagnosis of stage 4 carcinoma. All of his children were able to make it out to his hospice stay, and he passed surrounded by them and his daughters-in-law. Devin and Jean have lots of support from family and friends and appreciate all the offerings of condolences. Roger Evans has come home from a rehabilitation center in Nebraska after he was unable to do the PT and OT work there. He is currently in skilled nursing unit at Legacy Point in Waukee and is able to have visitors, although his wife Jean says he's not very lucid at this time. Cards can be sent to their Legacy Point townhome, and the address is both at the pastoral care desk, and there is also a card for them at the welcome desk today. Let our hearts also be with all those near and far with people the world over who are in need of care and who care for their communities. For people who work to meet the needs of their communities, for those continuing to speak out against injustice, for frontline workers in healthcare and service industries, for families and communities grieving the loss of loved ones. May we bear witness to atrocities that flash before our eyes in quick succession. May we bear witness to the struggles to overcome which we have not yet seen. In the tradition of our congregation, we light 3 candles, one for the joys and concerns we have shared, one for the names we have raised up, and one for all that remains unspoken, but present here in our hearts. Gathered here together, we take a moment to honor these joys and sorrows.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul.
Instead of readings this morning, we'll be sharing 2 video essays with you. Special music this morning comes from someone whose heart and homeland are near to Elaine, Arkansas, and recommended to us by longtime resident. Writer, reverend, activist, and musician Reverend Sekou was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and raised in the rural Arkansas Delta, the region in which Elaine is located. According to the biography on his website, he grew up steeped in a unique combination of Arkansas Delta blues, Memphis soul, 1970s funk, and gospel that shines through his own music with this Nashville-based band, the Freedom Fighters. This song is called Times Like These.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
During my second visit in Elaine in March, I met a number of people involved in the Elaine Legacy Center. Faye Duncan Daniel put me up for the night at her home in Helena, West Helena, the county seat of Phillips County, about 25 miles north of Elaine. James Wright, program director of the Elaine Legacy Center, who you saw in the video about the massacre, took me on a tour around Elaine, showing me sights of the massacre and the two sides of town. I'd like to share with you their life stories that they shared with me. This photo of Faye is from our morning walk along the Mississippi. Faye's story. I am the firstborn daughter of Fred and Louise Duncan of Ratio, Arkansas, 6 miles down the road from Elaine, and was born in 1945. My birth was just the beginning of a very large family of Duncans. My position as firstborn put me in a unique position to have to grow quickly to meet family expectations. I was always expected to care for the younger family members who never seemed to stop arriving, screaming, and demanding care. Their dependence convinced me that I would not make a good parent, so I avoided situations where my virtues were compromised. My early childhood was happy and full of adventure. Lots of berry hunting, fishing, or just hanging out finding 4-leaf clovers was my favorite pastime. I spent a great deal of 2- and 3-year-old time with my grandmother, where I was chased and pampered by her 3 young children. I will always love them and cherish the love they gave me. My earliest memory is of the death of a sister, Dorothy B. Duncan, who died in childbirth. She was 4 days old. I remember my father burying her in the backyard. There was a sadness in a house, usually loud with laughter and activity. At about the age of 7, I was assigned tasks I always resented. The tasks were labor-intensive with low productivity and no reward. Yet, my family prevailed and thrived as all the other families and loved ones nearby. Church was a personal demand of my father's. My father would often use the Bible to make a point, but always had a joke negating his point. Mother was an usher, but she rarely used the Bible to make a point. I started school at 5 years old. My father walked me to school the first day, and along the way, he pointed out landmarks. He told me I would have to learn my way alone the next day because he had to work and mother had younger children at home. So I tagged along with the children I recognized, never getting lost. That experience so shaped my decisions in life. I was never afraid of getting lost. I launched myself into school and learning as frequent conversations around adulthood centered on getting an education. I was an excellent student and took it as a source of pride. Gangly and unattractive as a young woman, being able to answer questions in class was my ticket to popularity. Since I'm of African descent and my parents were sharecroppers, I was required to work in the cotton fields during peak seasons in the fall and spring. We usually started school in November or December, decisively behind those starting in September. It was in the cotton fields of Arkansas I realized hard work was not a way out of poverty. I watched Black men and women work themselves to death, literally, and they never had money for burials and never left anything to relatives and never enjoyed a quality of life during life. Life on a plantation was labor intense, dirty, and the compensation was always minimal. I could always catch up at school until the 10th grade. When I returned, my classmates were speaking French and taking trigonometry. I was too embarrassed, hurt, and angry to want to continue, so I wrote to my paternal grandmother in Fortis, Arkansas, 140 miles southwest of Elaine, south of Little Rock, and asked to live with her and attend school full-time. She consented, and my parents took me to live with her. I did exceedingly well my junior year and was college bound. Then my grandmother died unexpectedly. I had met a very handsome young man visiting his family back in Fortis during my tenure. He returned from Las Vegas to take me to the prom. My grandmother's death meant I was returning to the cotton fields, water hauling, and parenting I so dreaded. So I agreed to marry him and move to Las Vegas. My last conversation leaving Arkansas was with my uncle, who challenged me to continue my education. My young husband and I moved into a trailer with his grandmother. We had our own trailer within a month, but it was repossessed 5 months later. I ignored the signs. My young husband was gambling. Educational programs were being offered through the state of Nevada, so a neighbor of mine, my husband, and I signed up. We were taught typing and English. After the program was complete, we were referred to companies for hire. This was 1965, and the Civil Rights Bill was passed. We were often offered jobs as maids or cooks, but we persisted and overcame the racial barriers erected to diminish us and keep us in poverty. We kept knocking on doors, worked like dogs, and listened to people less competent than us analyze us. We joined hands, trained each other, and became lifelong friends and comrades. We took classes together at the university and continued to improve our skills and experiences. My marriage was floundering when I became pregnant with my only child, who was born special needs. My attention to her deepened the rife in the floundering marriage until one afternoon it erupted in words and blows. I packed my 9-month-old child and moved in with a friend. I continued to gain skills, confidence, and experience that allowed me to make friends with white women easily. They never seemed to mind telling you all their business and everyone else's they knew. Before I landed a job, I was the test case for the NAACP. I had mad typing skills, and that was the only requirement for employment in those days. I excelled and understood the nuances of interviewing and getting the job. My child's condition required continued care. I had to live with other women who had children so we could exchange services, an easy task for me. I soon got tired of those arrangements and decided to move to Boston, where my family had relocated. Living in Boston was not for me. It was always too something. Too cold, too windy, too wet, too fast, too unfriendly, too much traffic, too many immigrants, just too. I attended a year of college while there, much value in that. I returned to Las Vegas, determined to be successful, and found my niche after landing a plum job at a newly opened hotel. After 18 years at the hotel, I was fired, along with all the upper management, and found employment with the County of Clark. I found a great job with a judge who I befriended during a plane ride to Los Angeles. The county job offered so many opportunities. I worked first for the judge, then the constable's office. Finally, I was transferred to juvenile detention. I worked as the administrative assistant to the assistant director, a statuesque, beautiful, unapologetic woman who trusted my work and allowed me to explore ways to retire. I worked for the county for 16 years until the director resigned amid scandal. My assistant director retired, leading me to retire. By that time, I had founded 6 organizations and worked to promote the value of family and community and was completely worn out. I wanted to spend my time with my daughter, so I retired and moved to Arkansas, where I live today, studying, lecturing, and connecting with my community in meaningful ways. I lost my daughter in 2016. I had 10 unencumbered years of agape love that I will always cherish. As for Elaine, it has what most towns have, lots of ideas and limited resources. Elaine lacks cohesiveness and vision or resources to provide either. Elaine, like most human endeavors, suffers from a lack of resources. What resources are available are unevenly distributed and are divided among racial lines. In Elaine, economic differences are dramatized by division of North and South, with Main Street the natural line of demarcation. Whites live on the South Side, and until recently, the North Side was predominantly inhabited by African Americans, and it was referred to as the quarters. A closer look at the white side of town reveals their levels of poverty, which raises the question, really? Their appearance betray an illusion of an enviable quality of life. Elaine does have potential. They have Mary Olson, a white Presbyterian minister, and Lenora Marshall to pull and push to provide the community with resources. James White, the most popular person in Elaine, is known for his dedication to the people in Elaine. Under their stewardship, Elaine will continually grow into a vibrant town and a source of pride for all Arkansans. It was written by Faye Duncan Daniel. I composed the following portrait of James White, Program Director of the Elaine Legacy Center, after listening to his oral history recording and visiting with him on an extended phone call. James. James White was born in the doctor's office in Elaine, Arkansas, and began his early years on his grandparents' farm near Ferguson, 15 miles south of Elaine. At some point, his parents moved to Chicago for better jobs while he stayed on the farm with his grandparents. He remembers going to the cotton field with his grandmother while she had to work. He was fascinated by the cotton and wanted to try picking, but his grandmother never let him give it a try. They also had a vegetable garden and some livestock, including hogs. There were always chores to do every day. James started school in an all-black school in Ratio. After third grade, public schools were desegregated and he had to attend school in Elaine. It seemed to him the quality of his education suffered after that. In Elaine, he learned about the drainage ditch that ran through the town from east to west. This was the line you did not cross after sundown. James didn't understand why people would throw rocks at them or sick dogs on them if you got too close to the line. In the mid-70s, his grandfather died and he and his grandmother went to live with family in Chicago. Life was so crowded and noisy compared to life back in Elaine. James found a good friend and together they avoided peer pressure and stayed out of trouble. After 2 years, he and his grandmother returned to Elaine, escaping the big city. James didn't learn much about Black history at school. He remembers hearing about the death of MLK on the radio, but he never knew much about it. History of the 1919 massacre he learned from his grandmother, who was 15 at the time of the riots. She was very traumatized by the experience and was always very careful to make sure her children and grandchildren were safe. She always encouraged them to become independent business owners and never work on a farm. In high school, James remembers how students were treated unfairly by the faculty. One year, the staff wouldn't let the Global Studies class take a field trip to the MLK Museum. Students protested at the school board meeting to get to go. Counselors would never send Black students to visit colleges like the white kids. In driver's ed, he recalls taking the test with 2 girls, one Black and one white. Both girls failed, but the white girl got to try again right away instead of waiting 30 days to repeat the test as required by the rules. She still failed. After high school, James and some friends moved to Texas. James stayed in Dallas at first, where he had a sweetheart, but eventually joined his friends in Louisville, 25 miles to the north. He found work as a janitor and then worked on the line producing computer chips for Texas Instruments. After a couple of years, his grandmother got sick, so he went back to be with her until she passed away. He always thought Texas was too hot, so he stayed in Elaine and worked construction, repairing concrete foundations for large gas tanks. He started his own business selling merchandise out of his van. Over the years, this morphed into a convenience store called The Spot that he still owns today. Also along the way, he married twice and had about a dozen kids. He's proud to say that none of them have ever had to work on a farm. In 2006, the schools in Elaine were closed and merged with the Marvel School District to the north. Around this time, one of James' sons was getting summer work with the help of Reverend Mary Olson at Waves of Prayer Church in the old elementary school building. James started helping out and developed the idea for the Elaine Legacy Center to offer different services needed in the town. They educate kids about the local history, offer after-school homework space and summer programs, a food pantry, a clothes closet, a book room, a computer room, and had a program with the bank to help teach the kids how to save money and make money from their artwork. Another project James is working on involves finding, identifying, and recording family cemeteries and grave sites so farmers don't remove the stones and plow over them. The idea for the Elaine Museum is also James' brainchild. His vision, in honor of his grandmother, is for the museum to present stories passed down of Elaine history from both Black and white residents. He wants it to be the People's Museum, a way to share the stories that have been silenced for so long. He's hopeful that the museum will draw more visitors to the area and create a need for more businesses like a restaurant and a hotel. He talked a bit about the Delta Heritage Bike Trail that now connects Elaine to the north, that doesn't seem to get used much. He thinks the $40 million, $20 million from the Waltons and $20 million from the government to build the trail could have been put to better use to help families create jobs or build school facilities or a swimming pool. I think perhaps the museum will help draw bicyclists to the area as well. Renovations on the old corner grocery store are underway to become the new Elaine Museum and Richard Wright's Civil Rights Center. The building will be dedicated on September 30th this fall on the 103rd anniversary of the massacre. Other activities are planned as well, and Dave Whitkey and I plan to attend going down a few days earlier before the rest of our group joins us on October 2nd for a week of hearing the stories from the locals, visiting the sites of the massacre, and help paint a church. When the Elaine Legacy Tour Group first talked about a church service on this day, our intent was to culminate a school backpack drive for the kids in Elaine. However, thanks to the generosity and diligence of a handful of members, the backpacks have already arrived in Elaine. Instead, I invite you, if you are so inclined, to contribute instead to the Elaine Museum. You can help others learn the stories of Red Summer that have been silenced for so long. Just go online to www.elainemuseum.org and click on the red donate link. And thanks for listening.
Every day brings struggle. Every day brings joy. Every day brings us the opportunity to ease the struggle of another, to be the joy in another's life. As we extinguish this flame, may it remind us to carry our light to each other and to the world. Our closing hymn is song 1024, When the Spirit Says Do.
We will sing do, sing, dance, and do. Here we go. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. Spirit says do, 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 Spirit says do. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta do, oh Lord, you gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. Spirit says sing, 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 Spirit says sing. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you gotta dance, oh Lord. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. Spirit says dance, Spirit says dance, Spirit says dance,
dance. Spirit says dance. Spirit says dance. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do.
This service has ended, and may our service in the wider world continue. Peace, amen, and may it be so.